All right. So what I was going to talk to you guys about today is the energy balance equation, which is, we've all heard it. It's calories in versus calories out and how that affects weight loss. And we've all heard that, calorie for weight loss, calories in has to be less than calories out. The corollary to that is, a lot of people when they're trying to lose weight are told, well, just eat less and move more, right? That kind of goes along with that. The problem with it is like many half-truths. It's true, but it's not complete. And there's a lot more that goes into each side of this equation that makes it a lot more complex. And so when I was just kind of thinking about what affects each side of that equation, I came up with a list of like 15 to 20 different things that can affect each of those things. I obviously can't talk about all of those, so I thought I would just pick a few just to kind of touch base on. So first is actually that I wanted to talk about is mental health, our mood and maybe anxiety symptoms, things like that. So that affects both sides of the equation. If we're feeling down or feeling anxious, then for some people that actually can reduce food intake, but for a lot of us, we actually reach for food. And oftentimes those are comfort foods that give us a little bit of a dopamine hit, make us feel a little bit better, at least while we're eating it. So that can increase food intake. At the same time, with decreased mood or anxiety, it affects the other side of the equation and makes us less motivated to want to do things like exercise, which is really a sad thing because that's also what can be helpful for the situation. So it can kind of spiral in the wrong direction. Along with that is stress. So acute stress that's occurring quickly. I always use the image of being chased by a bear. That is the fight or flight response. And actually, that shuts the gut down. We eat less during those types of situations. But during chronic stress, we get increased cortisol levels. And cortisol is a hormone that causes all kinds of problems. In this situation, it increases appetite, increases cravings. And chronic stress has also been found to show changes in the brain function and the areas of the brain that are involved with wanting certain types of foods like fatty foods or sugary filled foods are increased during times of stress. And so that also increases our intake on the one side. At the same time, stress, if we're feeling stressed, we again don't feel like moving as much. And also even just general activities, what we call, there's an acronym for this, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So these are all the activities that aren't exercise but still burn calories. Those go down to things like gardening, walking the dogs, those type of things. Decrease. Besides stress and mood, things like just busyness. So you can be busy without necessarily being stressed, although that can lead to it. But our lives are just full of so many things that when we're running from A to B to C to D, we can have increased food intake because we eat out more. We're reaching for fast food, just things that are quick, or convenience foods. Stop at the gas station, stop at the concession stand at the kids' ball games, those type of things, just because it's fast. And those foods are nutritionally dense, so we can eat a lot more calories in a single serving than we would otherwise, and we don't get the fullness sensation from our eating. And then when we're busy, who has time for exercise? So that affects that side of the equation as well. Hydration is a big thing too. When we aren't hydrated, a lot of us can misinterpret thirst symptoms as hunger. And so we eat instead of drink, which is what our body really needs. And then we're also missing out on the fullness that the water can give us or whatever drink that we use. So that affects things as well. Along with that, if we're dehydrated, our metabolic rate goes down. So we burn less calories. Water is necessary for burning fat. So if we are dehydrated, that process isn't as efficient. And then it also can lead to muscle cramps or decreased sweating, making exercise more difficult as well. So that also affects both sides of the equation. Sleep is another area that I kind of focus on a lot. If we're not getting enough sleep, first of all, you have more hours in the day to eat. And that's actually been found that increased calorie intake will occur just because you have more time to eat. And so that affects that. But also food that is eaten while you're awake late at night usually isn't the healthiest food. So the calories are higher. And then they can affect eating late at night can affect sleep. So then again, we can spiral into where the things we're doing is making things worse instead of better. And then if we're fatigued, then we lose out on energy or lose out on exercise related to that as well. And the last thing I was going to talk about was, one of the major things that can affect both sides of the equation is medication. So medication, I'm not talking about weight loss medications that can actually cause weight gain. This is actually a major issue. There's several medications that can lead to increased appetite. And so it's important to be aware of those. But then also medications can cause side effects that can make exercise more difficult. So if it causes fatigue or dizziness, or if it affects heart rate in a negative way, those things can affect exercise as well. Just a couple other things I wanted to talk about, that one that affects each side of the equation. The first is the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome is all the bacteria that live inside our gut. And we have way more bacteria in our intestines than we have our own cells of our body. Those are very important. And they've actually found, there's a lot of research still being done on this, but they've found that the different types of bacteria that different people have actually can change how many calories are absorbed by several hundred calories a day, sometimes, depending on that. So that's an area of research. So we want to make sure our gut microbiome is as healthy as we can. So eating natural foods, which they evolved to eat, we want to make sure that those are what we're feeding them. So the processed foods that they aren't designed to take care of, and neither are we for that matter. And then also, so that's on the energy intake side. On the energy output, something that's being looked at more is what is called the thermic effect of food. And this is the calories that we burn just to digest the food that we eat. So everything we eat takes calories to actually burn that food. The type of food we eat makes a difference there. So protein, about 20 to 30% of the calories you eat with protein is used to digest the protein. Carbs, it's about 5 to 10%. Fat, it's only 0 to 3%. So it's very little on fat. So eating higher protein can actually help burn more calories just because it takes more to digest those. So those are kind of some of the things. Like I said, there's a lot more that goes into it, but just an idea that it's not simply calories in, calories out. It's way more complicated than that. And so, if you ever hear somebody say, eat less, move more, and say, yeah, that's true, but that's not everything.